All right, I think we should get started. We have 83 people on the call. Thank you so much for joining for this very first session of Whole of Society Talks. My name is Sagar Aryal, and I'm going to be your host for this series. I'm also the chair of the technical subcommittee for the GEF CSO Network. And I've been in this role for about a year and a half. And I also work with the Plan for the Planet Foundation, which is based out of Germany, as Chief Technology Officer. I'm really excited to be hosting this important conversation with you all today. But before we jump in, I want to quickly share to all of you what we expect out of this series. The Whole of Society Talks is designed in the lead up to GEF-9. I understand GEF-9 might be a new topic for many of you, and I think this is the moment where we'll also discuss about these terms. And our idea for the series is very simple. If we are serious about a whole of society approach, then we need to hear from the whole of society, from grassroots groups, Indigenous organizations, youth networks, and other civil society actors who are working on the ground in the front lines. And over the next few months, we will be holding about 5 to 7 different sessions covering topics like funding access, partnerships, capacity building, policy, transparency, and more. And the goal is to identify real, actionable ways to make GEF processes more inclusive, accessible, and effective, especially for those who often are not in these dialogues. And as we're kicking out this very first session, we've brought together speakers from across the GEF ecosystem. You'll hear today from our wonderful speakers from the GEF Secretariat, UNDP, Conservation International, and also from someone who has received GEF funding and has worked directly on the ground. We'll look today into how GEF engages with civil society, especially small grassroots and frontline groups. And we'll talk about what has worked in the previous GEF replenishments in GEF-8, where the challenges are, and how we can do better as we move towards GEF-9. And you'll hear us mention GEF-9 and the replenishment processes a lot. So just to clarify, we're currently in the GEF-9 replenishment process. We're currently designing it as we speak. And a replenishment process is when donor countries are deciding how much funding will be committed in the next 4-year cycle of the GEF. This process shapes not just how much money is available, but also how it will be spent, who can access it, and what priorities are set for that funding. GEF-9 will officially begin in June next year. So the decisions are being made right now. For example, for the role of civil society, Indigenous people, women and youth, and these are incredibly important. That's why we are having this talk right now, and we're inviting the stakeholders to listen to the inputs from whole of society. And this session is just the beginning. In the coming months, we'll aim to balance voices from both civil society and implementing agencies. And we're also hoping to bring in council members. Council members are representatives from different governments to the GEF, some technical experts and others to dive into different topics around the GEF-9 replenishment. And as a general goal, we want to make this series a space where we can listen, share, and shape solutions together. So we want to ask a few questions to you, which is going to help us shape the conversation today. So please take your time to get in there and help us answer these questions. All right, let's go to the next question. Yeah, next, go to the next slide. And the next question today, yeah, what's one thing you want GEF stakeholders to hear from civil society organizations so that you will get some of the answers already during the panel? on what different things that we need to focus. We need to simplify a lot of things. We need to make it really easy to access funding. And I think this is the conversation we are going to be having today. So once again, thank you all. And now to begin the panel, I would like to turn to our speakers. Each of you will have around 5 to 7 minutes to share your reflections, both from your role and from perspectives of the institution you represent. We'd love for you to speak on what engagement with GEF looks like in your experience, and what key lessons or leverage points you've seen when it comes to funding small civil society organizations from your role. We'd also like to hear what's worked, what's been challenging, and what should we be thinking about as we move to GEF-9. And after we hear from all of you, we'll open it for further discussions and take questions from the audience. To our audience, please feel free to post the questions in the chat. I'm not so sure how much time we will have for all the questions, but we will try to consolidate the questions, and I will be asking those questions to the panelists. So please add your name and your organizations when you're typing the questions in the chat. And if you have questions about engaging with GEF CSO Network or any other matters not directly related to our discussion, we have colleagues on the chat who would be happy to assist you. So we will also be very happy to answer those questions for you. All right, let's go to our first speaker, Gabriella from the GEF Secretariat. Gabriella, in the context of our conversation today, could you start by giving a brief overview of what the GEF does, how it supports environment action globally? How does its funding model work, particularly in relation to governments, UN agencies, and increasingly civil society?
Well, thank you so much, Sagar, and thank you to CSO Network for organizing this series. I think it's really exciting, and I'm really looking forward to hearing the questions later and to engage and to hear from all the participants. So thank you so much for organizing this. It's very exciting to be here today. So let me see, 5 minutes to try to give a quick overview of what the GEF is and what we do, and also talking about some of the entry points for civil society engagement and financing opportunities within the GEF architecture. So let me see if also I could imagine that maybe there are some here that might not know the GEF very well. So let me start with just a quick overview of what GEF is. GEF stands for the Global Environmental Facility. It was established a long time ago in 1992 at the Rio Conventions. It is a multilateral environmental fund that supports projects that projects that address global environmental issues. It covers many different environmental issues, from biodiversity, climate change, international waters, chemicals, etc. And I have probably missed a couple, including land degradation. So we cover a big spectrum of environmental issues. So today, the GEF is a financial mechanism to over 6 conventions. So again, GEF is really about supporting the implementation of the decisions and commitments set by the parties to the different environmental conventions. So today we are covering, or we are supporting 6 conventions. And just to give you a little bit of, a scope of how big we are. Today, I think we have something close to 1,700 active projects across 149 countries. And since we were established in 91, we have facilitated close to $26 billion across 186 countries. And we have also, and this is an important component, we have also leverage co-financing in about $149 billion. So that's a lot of money that goes out to many countries for addressing environmental issues. Just to go in a little bit on the governance, and I'm not going to go in too much, but it might be good you ask the question how we work with GEF agencies. GEF operates today with 18 GEF implementing agencies. And these agencies collaborate directly with governments and civil society to design and implement projects across the globe. At the country level, in each country, GEF has an operational focal point, and the operational focal point usually sits within the Ministry of Environment. And the role of the operational focal point is extremely important in the GEF architecture, because the focal point actually coordinates all of the activities in each of these countries. And just to let you know again, GEF has we have different kinds of financing within the architecture. You can have a full-sized big project. We have mid-sized projects, and we also have a lot of enabling activities where we support the reporting to the conventions. And then we have the small grants program as well, and we'll go into much more detail about that. So that's sort of like generally, as general as I can do it. And I know that I probably missed a lot of details, but happy to take some questions. But that's sort of what the GEF is. And then I really want to highlight here, and this is why we are here, that even from its onset in 1991, enshrined in our instrument is the engagement with stakeholders. And actually, since the beginning, the role of civil society, indigenous peoples, local communities, more and more youth, and now or more and more women and gender issues, as well as youth, has also become a bigger part of what we are prioritizing. So this has been enshrined in many different ways, our engagement with civil society. So I'm going to just highlight a couple, and just to give you a little bit of an idea. First, I'm going to talk a little bit about the policy framework, the requirements that we have for each of our projects that stipulates how the GEF in the design and implementation of its projects engages and consults civil society, indigenous peoples, and local communities. And then I'm also going to talk a little bit about what kind of role civil society plays in our governance model. And the CSO network is a good example here, and I go into that. And then I go a little bit more into detail on the specific financing windows and programs that we have currently. So I'm going to try to do that within a time frame of 1 minute I have set to myself. So since its beginning, we have had different policies, as I said, that stipulates the requirements for the GEF agencies and countries as they are developing and designing projects, and when they're implementing and monitoring the implementation of these projects. I'm just going to highlight 3 different policies that we have. We have that really are targeting the civil society engagement, and that is the policy on stakeholder engagement. And we have a policy on gender equality, really promoting gender equality measures in our projects. And then we have environmental and social safeguards. The safeguards provide a lot of minimum standards in terms of ensuring no adverse impact on local communities, civil society, or any stakeholders in the design and implementation of GEF projects. The safeguards also include important recognition and processes for recognizing indigenous peoples and local communities, which is extremely important, including the FPIC. So we have a lot of these policies, and maybe they're, what do you call it? They might be a little bit of dry, but they really are the foundation and how to ensure that the projects are doing it. I did see one comment earlier in one of the questions. How do we ensure meaningful consultation and engagement with civil society. The policies might help to get to the consultation, but the meaningful is something that that is something that takes an additional effort than maybe that we just have in the policies. So again, we have a whole policy sort of package that sort of sets out the rules of engagement. And then we have also, again, an important part, and that's the role that civil society and also Indigenous peoples organizations play in our governance and decision making. Maybe as, I don't know, Sagar, if you mentioned, but the CSO network has played an important role attending and participating in the GEF Council, in our GEF Assembly. And so does also our Indigenous Peoples Advisory Group. And this provides an important, and it's not all environmental financing mechanism that provides this opportunity to civil society to partake in decision making, but that is one other entry point. And I also wanted to take this opportunity to just highlight, and maybe some of you have participated already. We do organize a lot of constituency workshops around the globe where we invite civil society to participate in these. They're called ECWs, and I'm hoping that some of you already have been participating in some of these. And we do them on a regular basis with a lot of participation of civil society, Indigenous peoples, women groups, and youth groups. So, and that is part of a strategy that we call the country engagement strategy. So again, we have policies, we have entry points for governance, and then importantly, we have dedicated financing windows and programs. And we will go in, and I know that Doley is here from UNDP. We'll go into more on the details on the small grants program. And Kristen, I'm sure you're going to talk about the Inclusive Conservation Initiative and others. But let me just highlight these programs a little bit for you to get an overview, and then we can go into details. So again, in addition to the requirements in policies and the governance structure, etc., we do have these dedicated programs that provide important and really critical financing to civil society, Indigenous peoples, and youth, including supporting gender equality measures in as well. So the first one, and then we'll go into more, is the Small Grants Program, which in fact was established almost as the beginning of the GEF's existence in 1992. And this has provided, since its onset, the key vehicle for the GEF to facilitate financing, capacity development, technical assistance to local communities for local actions, for innovations, and for the last 30 years. Just to give you again a little breadth of how big it is. So for the last 30 years, we have calculated that we have facilitated access to almost $1.5 billion through the Small Grants Program, with an additional a lot of co-financing. We have had over 30,000 SGP projects since its beginning, and we have operated within, I think, 136 countries at one point or another. So this program has always been sort of the mainstay and an important component of the GEF architecture to reach and support civil society and local communities. Just to give you a little bit of a breath as we're looking into GEF-9, we did consider really the important role of this program, as well as the many obstacles and challenges for civil society to engage in GEF projects and to receive financing. So we started in GEF-8, which now is 3 years ago. We really looked at opportunity to increase the scale and scope of the Small Grants Program as we started GEF-8. And we managed to secure additional resources for the program. We have also made some new modification to its operations. We have included not only UNDP has been serving as a main implementing agency for the SGP for the 30 years, but in GEF-8 we introduced 2 new GEF agencies to also play their important role as an implementing agency, and that is Conservation International as well as FAO. So we have broadened that. We also have, of course, included, and I'm not going to go into all of the details here, but just to say that in GEF-8, we have allocated about $940,000 to each of the participating countries. And many countries have added additional resources from their STAR as well. So I think about almost $104 million additional money. So as you can see, it is a big chunk of money for each of the countries to manage this small grants program. And I'm not going to go into too much detail. So we have the small grants program, then we have the Inclusive Conservation Initiative that really has been, it was, I think, introduced in GEF-7, so a couple of years back, and really being a key vehicle for engaging and supporting Indigenous peoples and finding models of really having Indigenous peoples and local communities design and implement these projects with a strong focus on biodiversity. Then we have introduced in GEF-8 the Fonseca Leadership Program, and this is one of the initiatives that we brought forward, recognizing that maybe in the past we haven't really focused on youth engagement and supporting the important role of youth in conservation. And so the Fonseca Leadership Program was launched with $10 million in GEF-7, and really supports training and field research and students focused on biodiversity conservation. So far, I think we have trained or supported up to 160 young conservation leaders through this program. So these are again, now I'm going to just recap. So we have policies in place to set the standards for the GEF projects. We have governance and decision-making processes, and then we have the dedicated windows and programs. I think one thing that I should say that, and we'll probably go into it a little bit later, clearly this is not enough, because we have a big portfolio, and even though that we have policies that say, you know, civil society must be and local community must be consulted in GEF projects, there is more that we can do within really sort of mainstreaming a whole of society approach across all GEF projects and programs. And this is something that is also one of the priorities moving forward. I'm just going to add a little bit on some of the ideas of moving forward. In GEF-9, as you might have heard, we have really increased our ambition to increase financing and support to civil society. We are looking towards ensuring that at least 10% of GEF resources are allocated to civil society, Indigenous peoples, youth and women groups by 2030. We're also looking at augmenting all of the dedicated windows, expanding them further, hopefully getting more resources for these different initiatives. But again, one of the key components is also on the measures and ways that we can ensure whole of society approaches that really support civil society across all of the other GEF finance projects and programs. So I think I'm going to end there, and I had said to myself, I'm not going to be able to speak for very long, but now I probably have. But I hope that this at least provides a general information, and I'm super excited to take any questions from you, Sagar, or from anyone else. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Gabriella. I see a lot of questions on the chat about how to access funding. How do we do that? I will come to those later, but let me go next to invite the man who has received GEF funding and worked on the ground. So Mali Ole Kaunga, could you tell us a bit more about your community, the projects you've led under GEF funding, and how this support has impacted your work on the ground.
So much, and great to be here. Hope you can. I'm in the bush, so my signal is very unstable. And I hope you can see me. Yes, Impact has really has received resources from GEF 7 and through through Conservation International. Am I audible enough? Oh, thank you. So I think it's been quite a while, and they have been facing a lot of challenges because it came when there was COVID, and then it took so long. But having saying that, I think it's also very important that to mention that it was a very competitive. The process was very competitive, and in the sense that it's very technical in the start, but it also depends on how an organization is prepared and at what level development that organization in terms of its institutional systems and organizational development. But we had a number of heavy lifting from the beginning. It also depends on the amount of support you are able to receive from the organization, the lead organizations, and we did receive this. So after a long period of discussions with the CI, we were able to get some support. But all the same, we have been a well-grounded organization over the years. We've been this landscape where I am right now. It was in Europe Basin for about 20 years. So we had collected a lot of information ourselves, and we know exactly what we want to do. And what this, so it has enhanced our work. It enhanced our capability to engage deeply in communities where we work. And what we are doing is actually enabling communities to really to acquire the land and through titling. In Kenya, we've got the Community Land Act. So we were working with 23 communities, enabling them to develop, to secure their land and strengthen their capacity to manage land and their own resources. The other focus that what we are doing at the moment is strengthening the knowledge in Indigenous knowledge systems through documenting and also registering the knowledge in which they are and how they have always managed their natural resources, their cultural assets. So through by cultural protocols, we're able to document that, and we have a set of maps that communities are able to really identify their own resources, cultural resources, knowledge systems, but also cultural institutions, and revitalizing them to be able to use them as an avenue to govern their biodiversity resources. The other way is also the organization itself is able to receive resources to strengthen its own internal systems, like safeguards. And through that, you are able also, if you use this or these opportunities, if you use these opportunities in a better way, you're able to enhance your own internal capacity to attract or even get more resources in this case. And this is very important. That Impact has been able to really also become. What does inclusive really mean? What does it really mean in a local, rural community, Indigenous peoples who are struggling with climate change, with land rights, with other challenges within the landscape? So this has been very important for the project. The initiative to be able to even enable us to scale our work. Well, what is it that what is the good? I think what people will want to hear. What is it that can be improved? I think the problem, the Indigenous peoples need long-term funding that is predictable, flexible to their own aspirations and needs, so they can deliver those benefits, global biodiversity benefits, so also they can strengthen their own institutions. That's one thing that is trust in the sense that you need to develop a relationships with the organization, and that process of developing the project because there's a concept note that you have to submit, and then that goes through. Then you have to also work through in terms of developing a project document that suits the document that now it's a proposal, an implementation plan, implementation matrix, and all that. So that you need a lot of support as an organization. You need a lot of support in terms of guidance, but also the technicality, simplification of that in terms of enabling Indigenous peoples themselves. Well, it's a long process because our inclusive conservation team is almost entirely in the community all the time, because we work in 23 communities owning their own land within the institutions. But also there are another cadre of elements that you need a good relationship with the government agencies like the Ministry of Environment, but other actors. One thing and great thing that this has enabled us to do, if each year we're able to bring a dialogue, a national dialogue to enable conservation organizations, Indigenous peoples organizations to discuss about conservation approaches within the landscape. And this has been continuous, also opening spaces to enable and building trust with that within the landscape to be able to share information. And this is an interesting thing, approach that you see Indigenous people. We even gone further, and through this grant, we are now in the process of designing an inclusive rights-based rights-based conservation and development course in partnership with the University of Nairobi, so that we can assist policymakers, conservationists, and other young leaders to be able to really understand and dig more what it is that when you say conservation. The challenge remains in terms of what is the future. Right now we are going to GEF-9. GEF-8 has been released. It's gone back to, I think it's WWF. And we are right now struggling as an organization, despite the fact that this one has not ended. But we are trying to see how do you scale up what we are doing? Who else will be able to fund us within the tune of $2 million? So that's now where we are, because already we see that level of funding is good, but it needs to go beyond the 4 years because there's a lot of heavy lifting in the process. There's also the fact that the continuous cycle of the GEF, we are not going into GEF-9. We are not quite sure that we'll get into that. But for our colleagues and friends here and Indigenous people's fraternity here, I think it is very technical. It requires a lot of preparatory time, and it requires the organization or community to have a lot of data and information to be able to prepare that proposal. It's not easy. It's very technical. We still feel that it needs a number of simplifying those process itself, so that Indigenous people. I understand the GEF-8 and the Heartlands Conservation Initiatives are simplified a little bit, but I've not really, because we are not applying into that. But I hope that we can really work into a way that other organizations can be able to really access. But the good part of it is that when it comes to project development, there's a grant that's there's a sub grant that you get advanced to enable you prepare, bring in consultants if you are able to enable you prepare the documents. But we as an organization, we feel we had a lot of stress during preparatory level, heavy lifting. We got a little bit frustrated because of the technicality. But eventually, we worked through with a team in Conservation International to the extent that we are now more in a relation kind of partnership where there's a to and fro, and the flow as now we have now resumed, we got into the flow, and we hope that it will continue this way. So that for us has been a challenge, but also a challenge that we have been able to grow out of it by also bringing in other resources, other human resources to be able to advance to enable us implement the project. So thank you so much, and I hope I've been of value to be able to speak in this platform. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing your experience. I will come back to you with some more questions, but I'd like to go next to Doley, who has been working with UNDP So could you tell us about your work in the context of SCP, how you see it evolving to better meet the needs of smaller frontline groups, and any practical steps or advice you can offer to CSOs who are trying to access SCP?
Thank you very much, Sagar, and good morning, good afternoon, colleagues. Before I introduce myself, I really want to thank the GEF CSO Network for organizing this very important event, and of course the kind invitation to join you today. I'm very honored to represent UNDP and to share insights from the GEF Small Grants Program. As Gabriella mentioned, this program was started, along with the GEF in 1992. So this, for over 30 decades, the Small Grants Program has been at the forefront of supporting community-led environmental action, for over 3 decades, for over 30 years, as was said. My role, I'm a principal technical advisor for ecosystems and biodiversity, as Saga, you kindly introduced. And in this role, I oversee the implementation of the Small Grants Program in addition to our biodiversity portfolio. And I work with excellent colleagues like, yourself, with Gabriella, with our global and country teams to implement this very important program. Now, you would agree, Saga, that the SGP embodies the very essence of, actually what Ole was referring to as well. And I think we can see him there in action as he is speaking to us. But this essence of really thinking globally, but acting locally. And since its establishment, that's what Small Grants Program has been doing, bringing together civil society, local communities, governments, the private sector, and of course, various other stakeholders to promote systemic change from the community level up. So SGP does this by providing financial and technical support to projects, initiatives that restore the environment while enhancing people's well-being and livelihood. Now, I will go into a little bit, and feel free to stop me at any point, but I'll go into a little bit on SGP's unique approach. And Gabriella, already referred to some of the excellent results over the 30 years or so of, implementing SGP. The really important results were delivered through over 30,000 small grants projects, the large amount of resources, and I believe we do have a video prepared later to see as well. But SGP's unique approach revolves around, the 3 ideas, or 3 I's, as we call it, of innovation, inclusion, and impact. Now, this idea of inclusion is really, if I may focus on, is one of the most powerful and important aspects of SGP, and this commitment to social inclusion. So SGP is increasingly and importantly focused on making sure that Indigenous peoples, groups like Indigenous peoples, ethnic minorities, women, youth, persons with disabilities, and other marginal groups have direct access to funding and support. Yeah, and as was also mentioned, and we heard a little bit from Ole as well, these groups do face significant challenges and barriers, whether it's to do with limited institutional capacity, such as preparation of project documents and other requirements, or to do with even legal registration and at the country level, and sometimes also simply being excluded from traditional funding channels. And therefore, I mean, therein lies the value of SGP. And SGP has recognized this, and we've gone with the funding support from the GEF, and working very closely with our very dedicated support infrastructure at the country level, consisting of the national steering committees, who, by the way, are these excellent group of individuals who support, who do this for free, who support the governance of the SGP, and also really dedicated technical advisory groups. SGP goes the extra mile. So for first-time grantees, for instance, SGP provides support with getting registered, opening bank accounts, even establishing legal identity. Now, these are very basic, but important and essential steps that enable participation. And earlier in the Mentimeter, we also heard, participation, effective participation as one of the key things that colleagues are looking forward to. Also, to further promote inclusion, SGP has, over the years of experience, has developed several dedicated approaches, including innovation program. Now, these are programs that are dedicated to focus on specific groups, like women led projects or initiatives or issues. We also have experimented with and had really good results with fellowship opportunities, like our Indigenous Fellows program, where we have linked and supported Indigenous peoples' leaders to engage with and influence global and national policy discourse and space. And they're also making sure that there are carve-outs, funding carve-outs specifically for women, youth, and other disadvantaged groups. Now, one thing, again, coming to the Mentimeter saga earlier, one thing that I saw was funding was mentioned as one of those important, and I think we can't deny that. But we also saw connection, we saw partnership. So that's what SGP does, actually. SGP support goes beyond funding. It actively fosters knowledge exchange, connections for peer-to-peer experience sharing, learning through our National Steering Committee and the technical advisory groups, the grantee networks, ensures the multi-stakeholder platforms and community dialogues. Very important to make sure that grantees, especially first-time grantees, first-time, CSOs, NGOs have that support structure to succeed. So these spaces help build networks, share best practices and lessons learned, and promote, what we all want, scaling, sustainability, action on the ground, informing global, policy. So therefore, SGP, through such efforts, encourages also replication and policy influence. Many of the SGP models, therefore, you will also see later in the video, but has gone on to become, scaled, not just within the countries, but also, broader regions and globally to inform broader strategies and, national and global level, policies. Therefore, thereby, making sure that community-led solutions through SGP and other initiatives have a voice in, shaping the global environment policy. Now, I can come later on, and speak about if you are a first-time grantee, what do we need to do, who to speak to. But maybe for now, if it's okay with you, Saga, maybe we can look at that video, that goes into some of the results, that has been delivered by SGP with the GEF support over 30 years. So over to you, Saga. Maybe we can look at the results, and then I can go into some of the practicalities of how to access SGP funding at the country level.
Thank you, Doley. Prem, could we put the video up?
Nuestros saberes ancestrales están transformando el paisaje puno. Ante la crisis climática, organizados y combinando nuestros conocimientos, queremos crear un futuro mejor. Nuestra Pachamama es una gran maestra, un ser viviente. Por eso, como de nosotros camina por nuestras venas la sangre, igual la Pachamama también a base de estas aguas se alimenta. hay déficit hídrico. A nosotros nos falta para consumo humano, para regar nuestros pastos cultivados. Esa es nuestra seguridad alimentaria. Esta contaminación nos trae a nosotros esta crisis que estamos pasando. Mirando el tiempo, mirando a la Pachamama. Hemos sacado agua de abajo con panel solar para regar nuestros cultivos. Ya no necesita gasolina. Entonces, estamos mejorando, estamos avanzando.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you. Sorry, Doley, please.
No, thank you, Saga. So that you know, that video actually was one of the innovation programs where we worked with women leaders. So it's it's an example. There are thousands like that. An example of how SGP has worked with local leaders, women leaders, indigenous peoples to address environmental challenges at the local level. But Saga, do you want me to maybe continue with?
I think since there is quite a bit of questions on how to apply funding,
Okay.
I think it would be great if you could take 2 to 3 minutes max to address this now.
Okay, maybe I'll take maximum 2 minutes. I know there will be a lot of questions, and I can also refer to colleagues to our colleagues to the website. So if one thing I want to say, if you are a first-time CSO or an NGO interested in applying to the GEF Small Grants Program, the best place to start is by reaching out to our colleagues on the ground, our excellent SGP national coordinator in your country. Now you can find their contact details on the SGP website under your country's page. And by the way, the website and some of my national coordinators may also be joining the webinar today, so do get in touch with them. By the way, the website has tons of information that are useful, including the country program strategy and all the past lessons and documents. So the national coordinator is your go-to person to understanding how the program works. They can walk you through the upcoming call for proposals, explain the application and review process, and also help you understand what we are looking for and what makes a strong proposal. They can also introduce you to the country program strategy, and this is a key document that outlines not only the national priorities, but the GEF focal areas, the strategic initiatives for current funding cycle. And for this one, the current one is the OP8. We are still implementing the GEF-7, the OP7. So it's really important to review the CPS before applying. Then, depending on your needs, the national coordinator, under the guidance of the National Steering Committee, can also connect you to several capacity building opportunities. This could be training that is organized by the country program team, or technical support and connection to other national partners, previous grantees, experienced grantees, such as the ones we heard earlier, Ole and, colleagues like him, and also including members of the National Steering Committee and Technical Advisory Group who can provide that support. Before calling for proposals, SGP country program team also organizes outreach and awareness workshops. So I would encourage you to keep a lookout for that. And as part of that, SGP organizes proposal writing workshops to support applicants in developing their ideas and understanding and navigating the templates. So the national coordinator, especially for if depending on your need, might also link you to to a past grantee, as I mentioned, who can mentor and provide support, share their insights, and in terms of the grants, we have three types of grants. So SGP national coordinator may also recommend that you start with the planning grant. Now this is around 5,000, usually a small amount of around $5,000 that can help you conduct stakeholder consultations, gather data, and develop a full proposal. In many cases, you might also be encouraged to begin with a smaller grant, let's say 10,000 to 15,000. Build your confidence, and then as I mentioned, many organizations actually then move on to much bigger projects beyond even GEF and GEF and other resources. So I think this one thing to keep in mind is that if you visit the SGP website, we can share the details later, and information on both the call for proposals shared on the website, but also on national media, like the national news news network, including mass media. So I would encourage you to keep a lookout on that. Oba, back to you.
Thank you very much, Doley. Really appreciate sharing that information to our participants today. Next, I would like to go to Kristen from CI. So Kristen, you've worked with ICI. This is another funding mechanism through GEF. Could you share how your work fits into this approach? Maybe you could share a bit on how ICI and other models create more direct inclusive access for Indigenous people and local communities.
Sure, great. Well, greetings everyone, and thank you for having me today. As noted, I work for Conservation International, and we've been a GEF agency for the past 12 years. And as Gabriella highlighted, not only are we working on elements such as the Inclusive Conservation Initiative, but we're now an implementing agency for the Small Grants Program. But ICI, I have to say, is a unique initiative of the GEF. In one sense, under GEF-7, it was sort of a pilot. It's the first time the GEF had allocated this amount of funds directly related to Indigenous peoples and local communities and their leadership of those resources. We co-implement the Inclusive Conservation Initiative with IUCN. And while $25 million is a lot, the investments in Indigenous-led initiatives have been between $1 and $2 million. So therefore, while it's a great amount of money, we could only invest in 10 projects in 12 countries under Indigenous leadership. So it's a little bit of a proof to test. And I think Ole highlighted very succinctly that these types of resources are in high demand by Indigenous peoples and local communities. There's a global debate on how to create better access and pathways for Indigenous peoples to receive those funds. And I think likewise, while this started during COVID, it presented unique challenges for us to actually be able to get expressions of interest